Everyone, it's Emily Fox. Today's video is going to be all about the Goodreads list that came out, the most read books of 2024 so far on there. So I'm going to go through the list and letting you know what I thought personally about the books because I have read a lot of these. Do be warned, okay, disclaimer, a lot of these I did not care for. But I thought it was interesting to still do because first, you still get reviews, and I can be recommending a book that I think is similar. So if I didn't enjoy it, but I think it's similar to this other one, it can be a recommendation for you. And the ones that I did enjoy, I really enjoyed, and I just want more reasons, another chance to rave about it, basically. So yeah, I have a complicated relationship, I feel like, with Goodreads in general, specifically their popular books or like the popular choices, like with their choice awards, like the really popular ones. Sometimes I just wonder, like, who like this? Why is it so popular? Like The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. Who liked this? I wanted to love it, and I just thought the writing was atrocious. So we're gonna go through that list. Do be warned, if it's not your thing, skip the video. So let's get to it. So it starts with fiction. In number one, we have Yellow Face by R.F. Kuang. I do enjoy her books, although I think this is my least favorite by her. I feel like her fantasies are so good. I know that it had a lot to do with like actual drama that happened on Twitter, which I'm not on Twitter anymore, but I'm not in the known of like the details or anything, so I couldn't really relate the content of the book to that at all. But I did enjoy the first like 2/3 of the book, and I felt like afterwards the author kind of lost me with the direction of the book. Just the way it was done, I kind of lost interest and I wasn't really satisfied with the ending, but it's a satire. You're gonna either love it or hate it, but I overall enjoyed it, but just I felt like the ending was weaker than I'm used to getting from her. Number two is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. This is part of what I call my pile of shame, basically books that I started and never finished. And frankly, it's been there for months and months. At this point, I don't know if I will finish it. I had really enjoyed her other book, but this one, I just wasn't really feeling it. You have these friends that are developing a video game and like whatever, I was kind of bored and I just never finished it. Then we have Remarkably Bright Creatures. With that one had been on my waiting list at the library for months. I was looking forward to it and then I put it down super quickly. To be fair, I have been putting down a lot of audiobooks lately down. I just don't know why. I'm just not in the mood for them. And I thought it was going to be one of those like feel good kind of story that leaves me feeling like the Grinch, like I feel nothing even though I'm supposed to. So yeah, it's about this woman and this, I think it's an octopus, and I was not feeling it. So it's apparently very much an unpopular opinion. I feel like a lot of people like it, so there's that. The next one that I did finish was Demon Copperhead, which seems to be the really big popular book of the last year. You have this main character, this young boy, who ends up being taken away from his family, his mother, substance abuse, and the new stepfather, blah, 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 happened. He gets into the foster care, and it becomes a lot of it like a social commentary about, yes, social care and poverty. And it's interesting. I did overall enjoy it. I found it really long, to be honest. And again, I found the ending really unsatisfying. I didn't really care for it. I didn't really care for the romance. So I liked it okay. I feel like it's really popular. People seem to really love it. But I feel like sometimes I read these books and I wonder if people pretend to like them. That's probably harsher than I mean, but like I feel sometimes like that with classics too. Like, do you really love this? Was that what really touched you? And I just failed to see what worked so well for them. Basically, obviously everyone's taste is different, of course, but it happens to me sometimes with fiction, and obviously it's the category we're starting with. So there's that. I thought it was fine. Number seven, Normal People. People are still reading this. It is so popular. In my review of it, I read a couple years ago. I think it said something like, whoever was behind marketing deserved a raise because they managed to make X amount of people. At this point, 1 million people read this really boring book. I found it so boring. I kept joking that Normal People must be boring, but like it was just uninteresting to me. I know it became a TV show and people are really attached to characters, so I don't know if that plays a role into it. I haven't watched, I have no interest after reading it. I will never read another book by her. But I don't get it. I don't get it. Number eight, A Little Life. People are still reading this, but this time in a good way, finally. I did love this book. Another book that tends to divide people. You either love it or hate it. I know it tends to be like everything bad that could happen to someone happens to someone in this book. And yeah, I loved it. I loved it. I was really attached to characters. The writing was beautiful. I've been meaning to read more by the author. Have you read Paradise? Is it worth it? It's been on my shelf for way too long. But yes, I love this book. Willem is one of my all-time favorite characters. I struggled to finish the book because I kept putting it down because I didn't want to start crying. But I feel like people are making it a challenge to read this book and everyone is bawling their eyes out. So unless they hate it, obviously. So yes, I did like this one. I have been meaning to read The Bell Jar. The next one that I did read was The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I did enjoy this one. This one is definitely dark academia, so I feel like in the upcoming weeks, we're probably going to see more and more people going there. If you like people in university that are studying, they're extremely snob. They're studying languages, and it's a lot. But there's a murder mystery happening, and I thought it was overall interesting. The murder mystery portion was kind of just okay for me, but I overall enjoyed it, and I think this is her best book that I've read, so I'm okay with that one being on here. And then that's it. Is my year of rest and relaxation worth it? I had started the audiobook and put it down pretty much instantly, but then I found a copy, a second hand bookstore, and I have yet to pick it up. Is it worth it? Let me know. We're moving on to historical fiction. First, number one, we have Lessons in Chemistry. I also put that one down super quickly, but I have been watching a TV show and I feel like it's working for me a lot better like that. So number two, we have Daisy Jones Into Sex. I still prefer The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by her, but this one I had been warned that it felt a little bit like a skeleton story. It's like interview style, so I listened to it as an audiobook like suggested, and I enjoyed it that way a lot more than I probably would have with a physical book, but once again, I think a TV show is better. I don't say that super often, but yeah. Number five, All the Light We Cannot See. I have mentioned in the past that I can't stand World War II stories. I'm so done. And it makes me feel heartless when I feel kind of just meh about it. And that's kind of how I felt about this one. It was okay. And I think people really liked the writing, but yeah, the story was just okay to me. Wayward, I also put it down fairly quickly, was not enjoying it. The Great Alone, I did enjoy this one until the end. You have this main character, she's a teenage girl, her family moves to Alaska, her father went through the war, he has probably PTSD, so there's domestic violence that is happening, she's very isolated, and that whole portion was interesting, and then they move away, and I lost interest. Where the Crawdads Sing, put that one down very quickly, and that's it for the historical fiction. Next we have mystery. In second position we have The Maid, which is a really good example of a mystery book that I'm so confused. Why is this popular? Wasn't this the winner for the mystery thriller section on the Goodreads Choice Award of last year? I really do not understand. I read it and I didn't like the way the author portrayed character being like possibly in a spectrum, but like the way she wrote it, it was like conveniently there sometimes and then like it didn't really factor other times. And like I just really I wasn't interested. I was really bored. And the fact that it now became a series makes me feel like it's money grab. So clearly very negative opinion of this one. It made it to my worst or most disappointing books of last year. Didn't care for it. And the guest list was also a winner on the Goodreads Choice Award of a past year, and I tried to read this one so badly. I tried the ebook, I tried the audiobook, and I put it down 7 times before I decided enough is enough. Couldn't stand it, couldn't not tell you what it is about. I hated it. So there's that. Because like mystery thrillers is especially a category that I struggle with Goodreads. So the Thursday Murder Club. So if you're looking for a cozy murder mystery, again, towards fall, I feel like not all of them need to be like really gruesome or like really thrillery intense. This is a good one. You're following a group of old people. They're all in like 70s, more like 80s, and they have this club together where they try to solve like unsolved murder mysteries, and then there are murder mysteries happening around them, so they start trying to investigate those. So it was fun for what it was. Would recommend it if you are someone that enjoys getting attached to characters. I think you would enjoy this series. The next one that I did read from that list is number 8, The Last Thing He Told Me. I believe this is becoming a movie. Once again, very confused. Why people like this? She's in a relationship with this man and she has, a stepdaughter. They don't really get along. And the husband disappears and she gets this message saying that he's gone, bye-bye, like take care of her. Like, so she, was trying to piece things together. I hated the way she did. She would jump. Like, how did you get to that, like, the next step? Like, you make no sense. The book was just really badly written, went in weird directions, and the ending wasn't, no, actually, before the ending was not bad. Like, it was a little bit more unique than other ones on this list, but it still was not compensating for everything else. And again, I did not care for the ending. So overall, again, I'm super confused what people liked about this one. I really didn't care for it. Then we have number 10. Everyone in my family has killed someone. I was so excited for that one. I bought it. I was, I thought I was going to find a favorite, and I really didn't like the humor. At first I was into it. Like, you have this main character and everyone in their family has killed someone, and they go to this remote spot to have like family reunion, blah blah blah, and there is a murder that happens. So they're trying to figure out who could have done it. It could be anyone. They're all murderers. So the premise sounded interesting, but then yeah, the sense of humor, it got really tiring really quickly, and when you get to the ending, at this point I just didn't care anymore. So that's also negative. But the next one I did like, finally. If We Were Villains. Okay, I really wanted to rave about this one all over again because I think this is underrated in the whole like dark academia vibes. Like The Secret History I feel like is really well known, but if you want something similar, I would try this one because you have this main character. They go to this like smaller university. It's theater, like Shakespeare plays. I'm not familiar at all. I've never read any. I went to school in French, so we didn't have to read any of those. I still was really into it. So again, murder mystery, dark academia vibes, snobbish people. And it was great. So if you're looking for more to, again, dark academia vibes for the fall, I would absolutely check out this one. Just to get the chance of raving about this one, it was worth bashing all the other ones. So next category is fantasy. And in number one, we have The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I personally enjoyed it. I feel like as it became more popular, a lot more people started disliking it, but the premise is really, really interesting. You have the main character, she's depressed, and she ends up attempting, and she becomes, she's stuck in like in between life and death. And she goes to the Midnight Library where she gets to try different versions of her life if she had made different decisions. So every book in the library is a possible different outcome for her life. So she gets to go through that and talk about, figure out her regrets, seeing how her life turned out compared to how it could have. And things progress that way. It almost goes in a direction that I would have absolutely hated, but then it doesn't, so we're good. But it was this close to be a bad book, but I did overall really enjoyed it, so personally liked it. Number two, why is this fantasy and not sci-fi? I don't know, but Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This is a Japanese translation. This was actually originally a play. You have this magical cafe in Japan where people can travel back in time. It's very specific. There are rules. You can only travel in the same cafe, so you have to visit someone that went there, and you have to come back before the coffee gets cold, and like there are little rules like that. So you found a story, it's like little stories, and it was going well until we went again in a direction that I personally absolutely hate. I put down the book, looked up the author to confirm that it was a man, and it was. So if you want to spoil it, I can happily spoil it in the comment section. I've been hating on that book for a little while now, but I stubbornly continued hoping it was going to get better in the next book, and it keeps on that same direction. So yeah, it ruined the book for me, but it started good. I just can't stand that trope. So there's that. Number three, we have The Song of Achilles, which I'm absolutely not surprised that it's there. It's so popular, and it's been coming back more and more with like book talk. I've been seeing it, and it's like this love story, this retelling of Achilles, Patroclus, and it's great. I did enjoy it. I feel like Madeline Miller, her writing is just beautiful in general. So this one is really popular. I personally prefer other one, but it's later, so we'll talk about that. Number four, we have Babel by R.F. Kuang. I did enjoy this one. Again, dark academia, perfect timing. We're going towards the fall. You have this world, it's fantasy, but it's also languages. So basically people that become completely, bilingual in different language are able to use magic. They have to be able to dream in that language. I think that's the specific rule. And you follow a main character that ends up going to the school to learn. As basically always, R.F. Kuang uses the topic to discuss things like colonialism. And I was really into it until the end, once again. I still think the book is 100% worth reading, but I feel like the ending was weaker. I think that one of the weakness throughout the book was the characters. I feel like the friendship could have been developed stronger, and it would have made, again, the ending less weak, in my opinion. So yeah, it's a standalone, so it's still absolutely worth picking up and trying. But the ending, personally, again, I think was the weakest part of the book. Number five, we have Circe by Madeline Miller. I think this is my favorite by her. This was fantastic. Again, the retelling as she tends to do. I'm curious what she's going to do or when we're going to get the next one, because she's been flip-flopping what's going to be the next topic, but I'm waiting. We're all waiting. So yes, witchy retelling, beautiful writing, absolutely recommend. Number seven, we have Bookshops and Bone Dust, which is the prequel to Legends and Lattes that everyone was raving about, cozy fantasy. The prequel was good. Not as good as the first book, in my opinion, but still worth picking up if you really enjoyed it. Main character is desperately trying to become a well-known famous mercenary, but she gets injured, so she has to stop and heal in this small little town. And, bookshops, making some friendships, and I enjoyed it. It was cute for what it was. The Unmaking of June Pharaoh is another one that I put down really quickly. I really tried to like this. I feel like I struggle more with like witches whenever they're like our world, like low fantasy. Main character kind of time travel, not really. I wasn't sure 100% since I didn't finish it, but I just couldn't get into it. Number 9, we have The Puppy War. Again, R.F. Kwan. She is very popular. I feel like she has really boomed with book talk. This one I love. This is definitely my favorite by her series. The first book starts with main character, small town. She's trying to get out of this abusive situation with her family, so she really wants to make it into the school, military school, and there's like possible magic happening. Book 1 starts small and gets bigger and bigger, and the whole series gets bigger and bigger, and again themes of colonialism, but like using actual wars that have happened in our world in their magical system is really interesting. People that can use magical powers have this connection with God, but using those powers drive them crazy. So it's really complex. Obviously, it's a whole trilogy, high fantasy, but I love this. Do recommend checking out trigger warnings if you are sensitive to some topics, because obviously a lot of awful things do happen in war. 11, we have Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I really wanted to like it more than I ended up liking it. Main character ends up going to this university, Dark Academia. She's trying to investigate murder mysteries that are happening, kind of magical stuff happening between sororities. And team was interesting. Main character couldn't stand her. I liked the other side characters so much more. And there's a scene in there that I couldn't stand. And overall, it was just super long. After the murder is solved, it's not done. Really not done, and nothing happens. It was boring. So yeah, not a big fan of that one. And then number 12, we have Miss Bourne by Brandon Sanderson. This is an older book compared to all the other ones, but it's not super surprising. I feel like I often see it as like one book to pick up by him to start. I personally really disagree. I did really love the series, but it's a trilogy and it's not easy to go through the whole thing. I personally would recommend Elantris, or specifically Warbreaker by him. It's a standalone. It's available as a PDF on his website. Like, this is the best way to start, in my opinion, but this is also a favorite series of his for me, so I'm happy it's here. It's definitely deserving the hype. A heist trying to overthrow the Empire. Magical system, very complex, very interesting. Based on like metals, there are very, very strict rules. People can maybe push or pull a metal. Like, it's a really cool world. Do recommend it, but maybe not your first book by him, unless you already read a ton of fantasy. Next, we have sci-fi, but will I agree with the popular ones? Number 1, we have Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Not surprising that it's there. It's his newest release, and The Martian was super popular. I loved The Martian. This one I did like less than The Martian, which seems to be the unpopular opinion, but I do love the premise of someone having to try and survive in space with their wit, and he does that well. I enjoyed the back and forth between the timelines, I enjoyed the friendship, and I enjoyed the ending. But I did find that towards the middle, it kind of got a bit repetitive, like a little bit. Again, The Martian, like, yes, he had to survive, things would happen, have to solve it and move on, but I felt a progression that I didn't feel in this one. So it got, like I said, a bit repetitive and boring towards the middle, but I still completely understand why it's there, so I'm fine with that. Then number 2, we have The Measure. It's a newer release, so I'm not super surprised that it's there, but really? To me, this was a good idea, horrible execution. This felt more like drama than sci-fi. So in this world, people that hit, is it 21, 22, they wake up and there's a box that tells them how long they will have to live. It's more complex than that. You basically have a string, and like the length that is left will tell you. So people throughout, the upcoming months figure out exactly what it means. And you're following multiple people and the effects that it has on them and the world around them, and, political effects of it. And it could have been so good, and it just wasn't. It was really lackluster. So I was really disappointed by that one. Number 3, we have Dark Matter, Blake Crouch. Not surprising it's there because of the TV show, which I did overall enjoy. It did take me like 3 episodes to get into it. But the book is great. It reads like a movie, quite frankly. It's a thriller you can't put down. The main character gets kidnapped in the beginning of the book, and when he wakes up, his wife is not his wife, his son is nowhere to find, and he tries desperately to go back to them. And it's more than that, but you don't want to know, like sci-fi thriller, and it's great. It's great. The author in general has some weaknesses with like the complexity of his characters, so I feel like the TV show does fix some of that. But yeah, one or the other, definitely worth it. Number 4, This Is How You Lose a Time War. This divided people because of the way it's written, and I'm definitely a mixed review person in there. Because, again, interesting premise, time travel, yes, and you have these like spy trying to kill each other through time, and they end up leaving each other letters that end up kind of love letters, and It sounded interesting, but the writing style was just not for me. So if you're someone that reads a lot of books with like heavy, like lyrical kind of writing, you're probably gonna like this more. All Systems Red by Martha Wells. Really? This is a little bit older also, and it's a whole series of this murder bot. And they're kind of funny sci-fi. They're very, very short. At least the first one is like 100 something pages. You're following Murderbot, kind of half human, half robot, and they have to work for humans trying to keep them alive. And it's in space, and they're not interested really by that job, so they try to just watch TV shows in their head. Like, it's a good book. I enjoyed it. The rest of the series wasn't as good for me. It was up and down, but the first book is definitely worth the trying. Number 6, we have Dune, which part 2 of the movie came out. Is it worth watching? I have yet to pick it up, but the book was a big flop for me. I had bought this special edition. I was looking forward to reading it. I waited until I had surgery to like be able to. Anyway, I wanted to love it, and I thought the writing was tedious. I was bored. I had issues with it. I just didn't care for it. And it's definitely something that I don't know why it's so popular, but it is what it is. Number 8. Did we do this? Did we do this? Because I, who have never known men, this is like a 30-year-old book. And I read this in December of 2022, and it became my best book of the year. I like to go through all the books that I've read that year and I choose a number one. And it was my first time doing it, and it was the first book that I mentioned there. And at the time, there was like 5,000 ratings on it. And as of right now, it has over 75,000. How did it gain so many? Like, did we do this? I know I have made it my mission to rave about this constantly, and I know it's the book that I've made the most people in real life read, and probably this channel. So I would like to believe we contributed, because I've been seeing it more and more, and I'm so happy because this book is so good. It's very short. The premise is you're following these 40 women that are in a cage underground, and they don't really remember what happened. The youngest one, which we're following the story through her eyes, doesn't remember anything from her past life. And one day something happens, the door is left open, and they escape, and they kind of just try to figure out what happened. It's not a story about figuring out what happened. It's more an exploration of what it is to be human, like when we're left with absolutely nothing but hope, you know? What are we? So if that's something that sounds appealing, it's kind of like speculative fiction more than like true sci-fi. But yeah, it's super character driven. I loved this. I read it twice within like 6 months. So love it. Love it. So if you have yet to pick it up, absolutely do. It's like 100 something, 200 pages. So good. So good. But yeah, I was kind of surprised it was on that list. I got comments about it, and yay, it's so good. I'm so happy. Number 10, Fahrenheit 451. Is it because you have to read it in school? I had to read this in school, my 4th year of high school, and I didn't speak English, but I had to take strong English. I could take biology. So I could take 3 bonus classes, basically. So I could pick biology for the last year of high school. So I went to strong English, speaking absolutely no English, and understood absolutely nothing. But I did reread it on this channel a couple years ago. And let me tell you, I still thought it was a difficult book. Obviously, I understood finally what it was going on. But is it because you have to read it in school that it's the most read book? Because it is not my favorite book. I feel like it's one of those books that the message is good, but like the execution isn't necessarily fun to read. Number 11, we have Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. At this point, this is my 2nd book by her, and I've realized that the way she writes her books are just not for me. Again, more lyrical. There's a lot of back and forth between timelines, and it's a vibe that is just not for me. But if you like actually the other one, This Is How You Lose a Time War, you might enjoy this. Or if you enjoyed Erin Morgenstern, you might enjoy her too. But yeah, her books are just not for me. Now we go to horror, which I surprisingly read a couple of these. Hidden Pictures, I was really looking forward to that one. I was really enjoying it until the ending. Main character, she has some kind of past, and she ends up working as a nanny for this family, and she lives like in a small kind of cabin in their backyard. It felt kind of cozy at first, and some weird things are happening around the kid, and you don't know. Is the kid possessed? Is the kid possessed? Is it paranormal? Like, you don't know what's going on. And again, I really enjoyed it until the ending, which seemed to be hit and miss. People either don't care or have specific issues with it, but I can't really spoil it. I could in the comment section, but I didn't care for the ending. Number 3, we have a Bunny, which Dark Academia again. I feel like if you're looking for dark academia vibes, you have so many options on this list, but this was a weird book. And like some books are good weird, and sometimes they're not. They're like bad weird. And I feel like this is bad. It started good once again. You have main character. She is in this class, university, and all the other girls that are in there, she's kind of judging them. They call each other bunny, and like she's feeling like they're in a cult. They're weird. As the reader, I feel like you judge her a little bit for being so judgmental, and things start getting weirder and weirder. Very, very, very weird until it gets too weird. So yeah, I feel like you get to the end. My only opinion was, what the I just read. There's no way to explain it. You have to experience it. The next one is Tender is the Flesh. In that world, there's this pandemic, I believe, that happens that leaves us, humanity, unable to digest animal meat. You get sick if you do. So, of course, what does humanity do? They start harvesting different kind of meat. So you follow that. It was a lot. It's definitely very gruesome, but interesting topics to explore, I guess. But yeah, it's a lot. Number 5, we have Frankenstein, which I thought I was going to like this a lot more than I did. I thought it was just okay, but you know, it's a classic. You might want to try it. Mexican Gothic. This is a YA horror, and again, kind of was just okay for me. Main character goes to this remote estate, see some family, and then there are weird things happening, which number 10, we have Home Before Dark. This isn't the worst by Riley Sager, but I'm not reading more books by him after reading some awful ones. But if you like haunted houses, that's the vibes you get with this book. Main character lived in this house briefly as a kid. They ran away because weird things were happening, and she gets it back. I think her parents died. I don't remember all the details because it's been a while. I just remember that he tried to make her feminist, and it does not ring true. Like, it was weird. Like, randomly, a man tries to help her. She's like, "Are you mansplaining to me?" Like, weird stuff is going on. So, but if you forget that stuff, the book was okay. The ending, again, hit and miss in general with these kind of stories, but I thought it was okay. 11, we have Our Wives Under the Sea. Kind of a soft horror, which again, if you like those like lyrical vibes with all the other books I've mentioned, this is another one of those. Main character is in a relationship, and she goes into the ocean. They go explore in the submarine, and they end up being stuck for longer than planned, and like weird things happened. It was just okay. I thought I was going to like it a lot more than I did. Then we have romance, which is definitely not my main genre, but there are 2 Emily Henry that I did read. So number 2, Happy Place. Not my favorite by her, because it contains some of the tropes that I hate normally in romance that usually she didn't have. So these 2 main characters, they've been together absolutely forever, and they end up breaking up. They don't tell anyone, but they go on this trip that they do every year with their friends, and they don't tell anyone they're not together anymore. And them breaking up is based on them not communicating, which I hate that trope. And yeah, I struggle with it. I like the ending, but like I struggle with it a little bit. So it was okay. Not bad. So then we go down to number 12, which is the other Emily Henry, Book Lovers. This one I do love. Main character works in the publishing industry, and her sister is pregnant with her 3rd kid. So they go on this one trip to this town that is like in a book that is really popular. And it's going to be their, last trip before the baby, and she's going to be too busy, obviously, after that. And she meets this man that she knows from the publishing industry, and they hate each other. So, like, enemies to lovers. And I enjoyed it. I also enjoyed that in her books in general, the side characters are complex. There's a lot more to the story than just the romance. So I enjoyed it. Do recommend. Young adult. I surprisingly read a couple. Number 1 is Divine Rivals. I read this because I had heard it was really readable, which it is, but I really didn't care for it. It started fine. Main character is trying to become a journalist, and she's competing against this man, and they hate each other, and she ends up becoming this journalist for the war, and he goes to, and like, again, enemies to lovers kind of vibes. And I didn't care for it. I felt like the romance kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't care for it. No. Number 3, Throne of Glass. I don't understand why Sarah J. Maas is so popular. Again, I saw her a lot on Book Talk. I feel like I don't see her as much on BookTube. Maybe it's just the people that I watch, but I didn't care for it. You're following this main character who is supposed to be the best assassin in the world, and then she doesn't do She's like the worst assassin ever, because literally there's a scene where people are trying to kill her, right? There's this competition, and she goes to her room, and there's like, I think it's chocolates or candies that are left there, and like she eats them. Like, people have been trying to kill you. Like, are you dumb? The answer is yes, she is. And yeah, there's like love triangles. It was not for me. I didn't care for it at all. I actually vlogged my whole experience and it was not good. And then other than that, I did read number 12, The Cruel Prince, which I'm also confused why this one is so popular. Again, Faye, people are obsessed, so whatever. I just feel like it's been done, so didn't care for it. General nonfiction. Number 1, we have Atomic Habits, which I surprisingly liked. I do think that topic has been, talked about to death. So I understand people that are tired of it, but I think that this one is really good at breaking down these big topics in like small bites that are very accessible to everyone. Even like the book, each chapter, there's a little summary at the end of it. So like it could not be easier to digest and so readable that I completely understand why it's so popular. I did overall enjoy it so much more than I expected, actually. And then I did read number 6, The Art Thief, which unfortunately didn't care for it. I mentioned in my review, I kept focusing on like the wrong thing because it spends a lot of time letting us know what happened with that person, stealing instead of how they tried to catch him up. Like that should have been longer. I just kept judging him because obviously it takes a certain type of person, right, to think that they're entitled to steal that stuff. And he kept thinking he was better than all the other ones out there because he would keep it instead of reselling it. But he was living off his mom and his girlfriend. Like, anyway, there's a bunch of stuff I kept focusing on the wrong things. So it wasn't for me, unfortunately, but it's nice to try different kind of nonfiction, trying to figure out what I do like. I keep seeing number 7, The Fourth Agreements, everywhere. Is it worth it or is it too like spiritual? Let me know. But number 8, Cultish. I did enjoy this one a lot more than I thought, although the language of fanatism, I feel like is not really what the book is about too much, but the author doesn't really talk about cults, which is not really my thing. I feel like that's more like crime kind of novels. She talks more about like modern cults, like MLMs, like CrossFit, yoga retreats, like that kind of stuff. So I thought it was really interesting. Would recommend. Number 9 is part of my pile of shame. The Body Keeps the Score. So I started it, didn't finish it, and then I heard awful things about the authors. I don't think I will, but I wouldn't mind trying more books on the topic. It's about, trauma, how it affects your health. How to Keep House While Drowning. I did enjoy this one. This audiobook is like 3.5 hours. And the author really breaks down tips and tricks that worked for her and could work for you on how to keep your house in a decent way, your life really in a decent way while you're struggling. Wasn't a waiting list for way too long for this one. When I got to it, I feel like I had already passed that point in my life, but at the same time, it was nice to hear that some of the things that I had incorporated into my life were things that she would recommend, and I could agree that it actually worked for me. So it was nice. I absolutely recommend this book too. So that was a very, very long list of all of the most popular, most read books on Goodreads so far in 2024. I do think it's overall an interesting list. I know I hated a lot of these lists, but I've said I had like mixed feelings about the popular books on Goodreads often. I feel like you see them everywhere, certain ones everywhere because of marketing, and then people have to, you're curious to try it and it just keeps going. And they get super popular more than they probably deserve. That's kind of harsh, but like, you know what I mean? Like marketing is doing its job, I guess. I'm still happy that some of these ones are on there because I do think they're worth it. And it's really interesting to see some of them have been on there. Like they're still really popular, even though they've been out for years and years. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this bunch of reviews. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. Would love to know your personal opinions on these because just because I didn't like something doesn't mean that you'll feel the same. Feel free to mention what you liked about these books. And if there are other ones on that list that you think we should pick up, definitely let us know. And yeah, thumbs up, subscribe. I'll put more videos on the screen that I recommend you check out, including I did do a whole video about Dark Academia. Let me include it here because I feel like I've talked about that nonstop, and then more fall recommendations since again we're going towards that and you might be looking for more, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.